imagine you start building a project or contracting with an individual who does not, in fact, have legal title ownership. A matter of fact, power of attorney, right? No sort of legal footing or grounds to actually make them enter into a binding agreement. Mr. Francis told me about a gentleman who called this week and said he had, I think it was 17 acres of land, I can't remember how much, but he said, I have permission. Permission by virtue of what? So contractors out there, don't enter into contracts with people who have permission. That permission needs to be identified. When we speak of legal capacity, we mean the person having an ability to actually enter into the agreement. So, Mr. Paul, tell me why, in your experience, how important it is to actually engage with the actual owner. And have you seen some citizens try to, on behalf of others, or, you enter the job, mommy is the owner, but the daughter wants the balustas pink or that way. How does that affect the contractor? And I said,
so it's interesting that you brought that up, because the first thing I have on my discussion points is a single representative. First thing. And part of managing your contractor and your contracting dailies is having a single representative. There are, especially in, if we go back to the FIDIC contract model, they will identify from the employer or the person who is hiring the contractor side who it is that you liaise with and communicate with. Similarly, on the contractor side, who it is you liaise with and communicate with. And I will explain why that is important in a second. But to directly answer Ms. Daniel's question, legal capacity is the only way that the contract will stand. And therefore, is the only way that you could guarantee as a contractor or as an owner, a building project owner, that the work is done and done properly. Because everything else that we're going to talk about today about managing people, if that person is not indeed or in fact the legal person, it is going to just go down the drain. Right. And so it's important to have that representative identified upfront, because I've had projects where the whole family is a family extension and granny living in the house, and everybody wants. But if everybody wants, when I show up today and uncle left, for the morning, and grandma come and say, well, I like it so, I, as a contractor, I need to be able to identify and say, here what? I have no issue with you liking it so, but please let Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so know. And they will issue that instruction to me, right? So a single representative is important. A single representative on the client side and a single representative on the contractor side, right?
Good.
Don't
and I want to talk about that because...
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, because so we spoke about a representative. Do you mean we mean legal representative, the person signing the contract, the person paying the contractor, the person who has that fiduciary duty and obligation to honor what is in that contract, is the only party would be recognized by the contractor. It is quite okay as well for that to be two persons. So for instance, if a husband and wife owns the property in joint tenancy, and or it may not be that, they're just husband and wife and they own, they are the ones controlling the arrangement, list those two parties, both of them having the authority to give instructions, etc. And that those requests is what will be binding. Even for the contractor as well, because realistically, the contractor isn't always there on the representative.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So can a contractor now manage that? Today is only the plumbers on site, or I have, my carpenters, etc. What are some things? How can a client know who is the person that should be contacted and issuing instructions as it relates?
Right. So excellent question. And it really segues into the last thing I was saying is that as a owner, if you go to the person, the workman, and make a change, and the workman doesn't do it according to your standards of quality, that indeed could be a breach of contract, because the instruction has to come through a chain of command. We could end the webinar on this. Consistent written communication. Consistent written communication. Or in construction terms, we have something, a confirmation of written instruction, right? We also have a document that says this is a confirmation of verbal instruction, CVI we call it, right? And a confirmation of verbal instruction is how you make sure and cement to the parties in the contract what indeed has to be done. It goes along with the scope of works. The scope of works, which is what exactly are you doing, quantified by the BOQ. Again, so all of this is threads. There's a scope of work quantified by the BOQ and executed using consistent communication in written form.
That is confirmed by this confirmation of verbal instruction document.
Correct. So a CVI is a document that says, Mom said she want the ballistas in green, change from yellow.
Right.
That will then trigger a financial response, because yellow paint is more expensive than green paint, and so therefore we need to circle back. Okay, well, this will cost X, and the contractor, especially the workman, is not supposed to do anything until that cost and change is confirmed. Now that's change management, and we will get into that a little later. But the idea behind it is, you have a scope of works. That scope of works is quantified by your BOQ, and to execute, you need to have a written instruction from the parties who are represented in the contract.
Great.
Right?
Wonderful. So I hope everyone is following us. For those of you who have now joined, we're here talking about the practicality of managing a contract or managing. We've worked through confirming your land ownership. We've worked through wanting what to do with your property to optimize it. And now we're going through the practicality of, okay, let us say that you're embarking on an actual property development. You have engaged contractors to facilitate the physical infrastructure associated with what you're trying to do. How do you go about that? How do you not waste your money and really ensure a return on your investment? Because these topics really are, an investment conversations we kind of veering off to, and the legalities surrounding that, and how you can protect yourself and what you should be considering if you are in this position, right? We would have outlined what constitutes a contract, some of the features you want to ensure that you have present, whether you be a contractor or a client, and of course, always have legal representation. And now we're looking at the practicality of what you're asking for. How do you engage with your contractor? The purpose of this discussion this evening, ladies and gentlemen, is because of the high rise of these matters. So we choose our topics based on what we see you guys struggling with out there. And far, far too often, as it pertains to breach of contract claims and breach of contract complaints, it is often contractor culprits. The culprits are often persons complaining about contractors. Construction contractors are a bit notorious, construction engineers are a bit notorious for being difficult to deal with, and or the expectation of clients really not there is no meeting of the minds. So we are hoping to decrease that sort of occurrence.
Uncertainty.
Right? We are, and you know, the purpose of these webinars is really to educate so that the both sides can have a managed expectation, and the professional doesn't just do what they have to do and keep complaining about the client, and you know, I know what I'm doing, and roll up the eye and don't communicate. And the client don't have these grandeur expectations and always feel that they are absolutely right and that the professional could read their minds, because it happens also in legal. Right? Just this week here, we had just this morning, I was talking to a client about a criminal matter, and he said, my expectations were, and I said, sir, have you ever been criminally charged before? No, but so your expectations is not learned. And sometimes clients forget that. It is fine to have expectations. We are all entitled to expectations and opinions. But if and when you are not an expert in the area, the onus is on both parties, both the expert to communicate effectively and the client to adjust their expectations to the reality associated with the profession.
Yeah.
You say that again?
Yeah.
Adjust your expectations to the realities associated with the profession. So today we're talking about construction professionals. You may want to have, you only have $1 million and you want to develop 16 lots, right? And with houses, not 16 lots with trains, right? You want to develop 16 lots with one bed or with townhouses.
Because a man down the road tell you that could work.
Yes.
That will work.
Cousin, friend, sister, father-in-law just built a townhouse, and he said it cost him $2 million. The rep cut back and say, and you insist, you have to listen to the professional.